Start to label zeros of functions and sketching. All right. Find the zeros and state the multiplicity. Does anybody remember how to find, or what does it mean to find the zeros? What are you looking for when you're finding the zeros? You set the equation equal to 0, and you're looking for the x values. And what's another word for it? It's the x what? X-intercepts. Do you guys agree? What's another word you've heard? X-intercepts, zeros, find the values of x, find the roots, find the solution, solve the equation. Okay, does anybody remember what the word multiplicity means? Something with multiply. Do you guys at least remember hearing the word multiplicity? Yes. Math 3? Yes, it was Math 3. Okay, number 1 is f of x equals, I will talk about multiplicity in just a little bit, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Okay, how did we find the zeros? We set the equation equal to 0, and then you guys, how would I solve that? Double bubble. Good job. You are. X minus 4, x minus 4. Do you guys agree it's x minus 4 twice? Now, I could write it like this. I do not have to, but I'm going to talk about writing it like that and what it means. But here, when I solve, do I have to write two solutions, x equals 4, comma 4? No, if it's a repeat, I just write it once. X equals 4, and here's where the multiplicity comes in. Multiplicity is how many times your zeros occurred. How many times did we end up with the x equals 4? So I would put multiplicity equals 2. 4, multiplicity is 2. What does that mean? It occurred twice. You can visually see it here twice. What tells you right here that it's twice? The squared. If it was to the third power, that would be a multiplicity of 3. Does anybody remember what multiplicity tells you? It's the cross and bounce. You're correct. It's either going to be even or odd, and which one's which? If it was even, it...
Even. Oh wait, odd cross buns. Ah!
Yeah, odd cross buns.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Think of a parabola. A parabola is x squared. Does it bounce? Okay. Even, bounce. What did Mrs. Den Hartog teach you?
She said odd cross buns.
She starts singing.
Den Hartog or
Then our dog. I don't know.
on odd
Gonzalez
crosses?
sang too.
Yes, I was going to say Gonzalez, but I got distracted with singing. Okay. Bounce or cross? Do you guys agree? Yes? Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So, number 2. Oh, guys, I didn't show the work, but technically, is it the zero product property where you do x minus 4 equals 0 and solve it? Okay. Number 2, f of x equals 1/5 who's doing the cooking? 1/5 x to the third plus 3/5 x squared minus 28 over 5 with an x next to it. 28/5 x. Okay. Go ahead and set it equal to 0. Now, you could go straight to factoring, but I'd like to clear the fractions first. Can anybody tell me what I should multiply by to clear?
5.
Does everyone agree I can multiply everything by 5?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead and do that now. What do we get?
X to the third power plus 3x squared minus 28x.
Do you guys all agree with her? What kind of factoring is this first?
Greatest common factor.
Greatest common factor. Good job. Go ahead and do your greatest common factor. She's on fire today. All right, what do we get? What's left behind? X squared
Plus 3x minus 28.
minus
And then you could do the
double bubble.
yeah.
All right, so go ahead and finish that off. X plus X minus. That was cute.
Are we watching this video notes together?
I hope these video notes do record. Miss Horace, sign up with the link.
Should I post them just for that?
Or Tristan. For that.
Oh, and his hot cross buns?
Yeah.
Oh my god, my autograph.
All right, guys,
I'm embarrassed.
what does it factor to?
X plus 7, X plus 7.
Okay, 3 solutions. X equals, what's the outside? 0,
7,
-7,
4.
4. Do any of them have a multiplicity of 2 or higher? No. Guys, if it does not have a multiplicity of 2 or higher, you do not have to state it. It's implied to be a multiplicity of 1 if it's not stated. So since none of them have a multiplicity, that means they all have a multiplicity of 1, which means they all occurred once, which means if I were graphing, they would all be a cross. Okay, number 3. Y equals 4x cubed minus 16x squared plus 4x. Okay, set equal to 0. And what's your GCF on this one?
4. Oh, yeah.
4x, leaving behind stuff on the inside, and then I want you to try to factor what's left after you do your GCF. And does it factor? No, no matter how many ways you try it, it's not ever going to factor. Does anybody know what that means?
I do not want to do it.
Okay. It doesn't mean there's no solution. It just means a solution we cannot find by factoring. Back in Math 2 and in Math 3, your teachers worked with you on ways to solve quadratic equations when you could not factor. Does anybody remember at least one of the ways? Quadratic formula, that's why it's called quadratic formula, because it's used to solve quadratic equations. What's another way? Complete, that's the quadratic formula. Complete the square is the other way. Okay.
I said it.
Okay. All right. So, guys, complete the square. Since most of you know how to use the quadratic formula, I'm going to go over complete the square with you. Here's how it works. First off, this is what I'm going to complete the square on because that's the part that's not factorable. The 4x by itself can equal 0. Divide, what do you get? Okay, so x equals 0 is one of my, how many solutions do I have if the degree is 3? 3. I don't know if you knew that before, but look over here. Degree is 3. How many solutions did I end up with? 3. Over here, degree is what?
2.
And how many solutions did I really end up with? 2. The multiplicity was 2, but it's 2 solutions. Do you agree? Okay. So here, I have 1. I'm going to end up with the other 2. Here's what you do. You take what's on the inside, x squared minus 4x plus 1. You take the quadratic function and set it equal to 0. And then you try to factor. Oh no, I cannot factor. You move over the 1. X squared minus 4x, I'm going to leave a blank space, equals -1. Where did the -1 come from? Subtracted the 1. And then on both sides, I put a plus blank and a plus blank. Do you guys remember how to find what goes in the plus blank? You cut it in half and then
You multiply it.
square it. And it's a number right here in the middle. So -4 cut in half is negative, and -2 squared is -2 times -2, which is 4. What I add to one side, I must add to the other. So then we double bubble here, and -1 plus 4 is 3. Now, the whole reason we complete the square is to make this here a perfect square trinomial, which means these two guys should factor out to be the same. If they do not, you've done something wrong. What does it factor to? X minus
X minus 2 squared.
x minus 2, which Sal said is x minus 2 squared. Would you guys agree with him? Yep. Okay. So, now you learned this back in Math 2 as well. How do I solve an equation like this? What do I do to both sides? Square root. Why? Because the square root is the what operation of a squared? And what do inverse operations do? Don't say cancel each other out. They undo each other. Good job. So x minus 2 equals. Does anybody remember what you do with the square root? When you square root both sides. Not on any square root, but if you square root both sides of an equation to solve, it's plus or minus root 3. All right, last thing I'm going to add what? The 2, and x equals 2 plus or minus root 3. Okay, a few things I want to talk about. One, what was the degree? What's the largest exponent? Which means I was supposed to have how many solutions? Right here, how many do I have? 2. It looks like 1, but it's really 2. What happened to the third one?
It's the 0.
It's the 0. Please don't forget it. Sometimes it gets left behind. So I'm going to put here, comma, 0. Are there now 3 solutions? Yes. Where are the 3? 2 plus root 3, 2 minus root 3, and the 0. Okay, a few things.
So the 2 is separate from the plus or minus?
2 plus or minus root 3, yes, those are 2. So you would, like if you're plugging your calculator,
Oh, yeah, that's type
yeah,
2.
yes, 2 plus root 3 would be a decimal. You wouldn't, you would have to plug 2 root 3 in your calculator and get a decimal value. Okay, everybody listening. Now, what is this called? Complete the square can be used on any quadratic function. But it works out nicely when certain things happen. It works out really nice when this middle number here is even. Why? Because what do we do with it right here? We cut it in half. Now, could you cut an odd number in half and square it? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit harder. So I like doing it when that number is even and when this number up front is a 1. If those two things don't happen together, I would use the quadratic formula. Now, I'm not going to work it out with you, but if any of you want to try it later on your own, should it come out to be the same? Okay, so what is it? Some of you had your teacher sing it to you. X equals?
X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Oh, that was fast. Good job.
Waiting for the thing.
That's not.
She's like, I know it. Telling me right now, I got you.
All right, we're good? Okay. Questions on numbers 1, 2, or 3? No questions? All right. Does anybody raise your hand if you need this up a few more seconds before I switch it over? I will read number 4 off to you. If you're ready, go ahead and write it down. Y equals 3x to the 4th plus 21x squared plus 36. I'll read that again. Y equals 3x to the 4th
Is that number 4?
plus 21x squared plus 36. Would you need this? Anybody need it up a little bit longer? Okay. Yes.
So are these video notes, like, are they video notes online still?
Yes. So I'm leaving my video notes online. So I do have a handful of kids in my second period that on their own, they are continuing to work it as a flipped classroom. So they do their notes at home, and when I'm doing notes in class with everyone, they're just working quietly in the back, well, in their seats with the book working. And they liked it that way.
It's like 2 more helping it.
Okay. Same thing, set it equal to 0, and what, does it have a GCF, yes or no? Just 3, not a 3x, right? It's just a 3. What do you want to do? Factor out a 3 or divide out a 3?
Divide a 3.
Okay. I like to divide at 3, but most kids factor, so I do want to talk about what does it look like when you factor. X to the 4th plus 7x squared plus 12. All right, go ahead and double bubble. Oh, is it x and x or x squared and x squared? X squared and x squared? X squared plus 3 plus 4. All right, what's that property called again where I set them all equal to 0? Zero product property. 3 equals 0, x squared plus 3 equals 0, x squared plus 4 equals 0. When I do this, can 3 by itself ever equal 0? No. Okay. Can anybody tell me then why on this previous problem here did I get 0 as an answer? Because at an x. So if this was a 3x equals 0, could I work it out?
Yep.
Yes, but x by itself, will that ever equal 0? No. So if you have a coefficient out here with just a coefficient, just a constant, no variable, does it have any impact on your zeros? Yes or no?
No.
No. Can you just cross it out? Yes, which is why I personally like to divide it out in the beginning, but most kids factor it, which is perfectly fine, as long as you know it has no part of your answer. Okay, second one. Let's look at this one, third one. X squared plus 4. Is that a difference of 2 squares, yes or no?
No.
Looks like it, but why not?
Because I'm minus.
It has to be a minus and it's a plus. This one for two reasons. It's plus and 3 is not a perfect square. Okay, so I set them equal to 0. Oh, how many solutions should I end up with?
4.
Degree is 4, so how many? 4, okay. X squared equals -3, x squared equals -4. Square root both sides. Don't forget your plus and minus. Okay, x equals plus or minus 2 what? 2 I. X equals plus or minus I root 3. Okay, how many solutions are there? Don't box them in yet. How many are there? Are there 4? Look, how many imaginary solutions are there? Are there 4?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, how many zeros? How many x-intercepts are there? No zeros. Okay, so we don't use i's when we're graphing. So when we're looking for zeros or x-intercepts, it's not going to work. So no zeros. Now, if I was just looking for a solution, just flat out, just solve over the imaginary and real numbers, would I mark these 4 numbers here as my answer? And it looks like 2, but are they really 4 in disguise?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. What does this mean graphically? It will never cross the x-axis. This is going to be a rough sketch because we will be sketching these eventually. End behavior. You'll need to do this later on as well. What's your degree here? 4, 2, or none? Degree is 4, which is even or odd. And leading coefficient is positive. Is it high, high, or low, low? High, high. So if it's high, high, and does it, because it's to the 4th power and has extra x's and even has imaginary solutions, is it going to be a pretty U shape? No, it's going to be high, high with some blippy stuff. We don't know exactly what the blippy stuff looks like. We just know there's little bumpy stuff in between.
I don't know if you guys like went over this on Friday, but I don't really remember, like, how do you find like the degrees and the arrows?
We did. So it's on the video notes. It's if it's even degree is the largest exponent. If the largest exponent is even, it's either going to be high, high, or low, low. Positives, high, high. Negatives, low, low. And then if it's to the 3rd or 5th or 7th, it's going to be, I told them to think of a cubic function, low, high for positive and high, low for negative. And it's in the notes, and when you get them down, it's in there. Okay. One thing we do know about this graph is the y-intercept. Anybody know what the y-intercept is? 36. How do we know it's 36? Okay. Now, when it's an expanded form, or any form, y-intercept, you plug 0 in for x. 0 plus 0 plus 36 is 36. All right. Number 5. I'm going to write down one thing I want you to do. Given the zeros, write an equation. Right now, it's just going to be a generic equation with no a values. We will get to the point where we're writing a values as well. Okay, 5 comma -1 comma 2/3. How many zeros did I give you?
3.
And since I didn't label the multiplicity, what's the multiplicity of each one? 1. What's the total degree? I don't even have the equation, but what would the total degree be? It would be 3, right? Okay, now, here's what you do. Because they are zeros, that means they're x-intercepts. Do you agree? That means x equals 5, x equals -1, and x equals 2/3. Do you agree? I'm going to show you the previous page. I wrote them like that. I didn't write them separately, but there's x equals 4, x equals 0, x equals -7, x equals 4. Do you agree? Zeros are x equal values, yes or no? Okay, now I'm going to have you make this equal to 0. Move over the 5. What does that give you? X minus 5 equals 0. That means it's going to be y equals parentheses x minus 5. Next one, add the 1. What does that give you? And so in the next parentheses, it's going to be x plus 1. And the next one. There is an...
3x.
Okay, 3x minus 2 is the best way to write it. Now, if you wanted to, could you just subtract it and go x minus 2/3? Yes, but in the longer run, when we're finding our a value, it's going to make it more difficult. So, multiply both sides by what? 3. That gives me 3x equals what? 2.
Bless you.
And subtract the 2, 3x minus 2 equals 0. Do you guys agree? That there is my function. I need heads up off the desk. We're all taking notes. Okay. Do you guys agree if I gave you this and said find the zeros, what would you tell me for this one? 5. What would you give me for this one? -1. And this one, once you add and divide, you'd end up with 2/3. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Number 6. 0 comma -2 parentheses multiplicity of 2. How many zeros? How many different numbers did I give you? 2. Because of the multiplicity, what's the total degree? 0 happens once. -2 happens twice.
So it would be 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. X equals 0. X equals -2. X equals 0 is already done for you, right? There's nothing to do. It's just x. Parentheses, add the 2, what does that give you?
X plus 2.
X plus 2 equals 0. If I set these equal to 0, would I end up with 0 and -2? But,
Yes.
but what's my degree right now? Right now it is,
3.
it needs to be 3, but what is it right now the way I have it? Because
So you
I'm missing
square it.
the squared. Why? Because the multiplicity is 2. If the multiplicity was 3, instead of a squared, I would put a cubed. All right, let's check. This x out here gives me a 0 of what? X equals 0 is just 0. This one gives me a 0 that is what? -2 with the multiplicity of 2. Does it work? Okay, number 7. This next one, 2 plus root 3 and 2 minus root 3. I'm going to put a star here and put test next to it. Now, all of these that I've gone over with you so far are on the test. Why would I pay special attention to this one?
Because they have
Because a lot of people missed it. It's one that kids typically struggle with. Are we all listening? Okay. I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier. X equals 2 plus root 3 and x equals 2 minus root 3. When I have an equation, like up here, here's my equation, here's my equation. Do any of the equations have a radical in it ever?
No.
Y equals mx plus b, y equals 2x squared plus 5. Do we ever have it with a radical? No. Anybody know or any thoughts on what to do there? Okay, I want to get rid of the root 3. How would I get rid of the root 3 eventually?
Alright, so first you want to just square.
Okay, I'm going to want to square them, but first I'm going to what? Subtract the 2. So she said subtract the 2 first, which is correct, because I want to isolate that radical. So x minus 2, oh, wrong one. X minus 2 equals root 3. X minus 2 equals negative root 3. What do I do to both sides? To get rid of the radical 3, what do I do?
Square.
Square? Here's the question I have for you guys. When I square, is it okay to do little individual squares like that? No, I have to do a big quantity squared, which means I'm going to have to what?
Double.
Double bubble and double distribute. Okay, so x minus 2 times x minus 2. What's the square root of 3 squared because they undo each other?
Which is
3. And then x minus 2 times x minus 2. The square and the square root undo, but what happens to the negative if it's a negative times a negative?
I.
Be careful. Is it still positive 3? Are these two pretty much the exact same thing now? Do I have to work them both out if they're going to give me the same thing? No. Work one out. It doesn't matter which one. Work them both out. It's up to you. Double distribute. X squared minus
4x.
x squared minus 4x plus 4. And then equals 3. Move your 3 over by subtracting. What does that give you?
x squared minus 4x
Plus 1 equals 0. Now, do you agree there's much more work involved here than the previous two problems? But it's on the test. This here is your equation. Y equals x squared minus 4x plus 1. Now, if I had worked this one out, would it give me the exact same thing? Yes. What's my degree here in my final answer?
2.
2, which means how many solutions? 2. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
You
also,
don't get to put all that in there.
you do not have to. You can, but since there's no other pieces to it, you can leave it just like that. Really quick, does this factor x squared? You guys should not be packing up. X squared minus 4x plus 1, does that factor? No. Guys? X squared minus 4x plus 1 does not factor. How did they get these two solutions? Or how would you get those two solutions if it's not factorable? Quadratic formula or complete the square. You do not have to do that, but if you were to do it, would you end up with those two solutions? Yes? Okay. I'm going to show you. I set it up purposely. Look at the previous problem we did right here. X squared minus 4x plus 1. Is that the same thing that we ended up with here? Yes? Earlier, when I gave you the original problem and you worked it out, what solutions did you end up with the 2 plus or minus? Ignore the 0 because that was extra. But did we end up with 2 plus root 3 and 2 minus root 3? So would it work? So now we know how to work both ways. Does that make sense? Okay. We are going to move on to our last piece, which is sketching. Okay, number 8. Oh, don't write number 8 yet. Before we do 8, I'm going to give you the things you're going to have to find. Now, there's a whole section on the test with just sketching, so you want to make sure you know how to do it. There's 3 things you will be looking for every single time. The 3 things do not have to be in this order, but you do have to find them. Okay, describe and behavior. That's the high, high, low, low, high, low, low, high stuff. Okay. You will also need to find the, please listen, zeros and state the, what is it called? Starts with an M. Multiplicity. Multiplicity. Now, why do we look for multiplicity? To decide where the graph does what? Crosses and bounces. Okay. And another thing we have to find are the y-intercepts. How do you find y-intercepts? You make what equal to 0? Set x equal to 0. All right, let's try one. Number 8. F of x equals x to the third minus 16x. Okay, this business up here does not have to be done in this order, but this is the order I'm going to do them in.
Oh, the
Okay.
triple.
All right, so what is the end behavior? First, look at the degree. Degree is the value of the largest exponent. What is it? Degree is 3, and it's even, I'm sorry, is it positive or negative? Right here. It is positive. Okay, so is it high or low? Or low high, I'm sorry. What is it? Low high.
See, that you do it off.
Okay.
I swear.
Do you guys agree it's low high? Yes? Okay. Find the zeros. State the multiplicity. 0 equals x cubed minus 16x. Factor GCF and then difference of two squares. Go ahead and do that now. GCF and then difference of two squares. Anybody tell me what you have once it's all factored? X and then which?
X minus 2x minus 2.
X minus 2x plus 2. How many zeros do I end up with?
3.
Does that make sense to have 3 zeros? What's the
Yes.
first one?
0.
0. The next one? What's my degree?
Oh.
No, I mean like it's x plus 2 x plus 1.
Oh, here. Thank you. I just wrote it. Sorry. Okay. Which is horribly bad that I just wrote it because I have the numbers right in front of me. Right there. Okay, so -4 and
Positive 4.
+4. Okay. What's the multiplicity for each one?
1.
So do I have to write that?
No.
No, but because one is odd, they're all going to be crosses or bounces?
Bounce.
Cross. And then y-intercept, I make the equation, I plug in 0. So y equals 0 cubed minus 16 times 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Okay, so I have that it's low, high. Those are my intercepts, and that's my y-intercept. Okay, so let's make our graph. All right, 0, -4, and +4. Okay, it should start low. So will I, guys, keeping your eyes open, heads up. Should I start from the top half or the bottom half? And when I get to this intercept, will I cross or bounce? They're all crosses. So then I don't know how high up to go, but I know I have to come back down to hit the next intercept. Cross or bounce? I don't know how far down to go, but I know I have to come back up to hit that x-intercept. Cross or bounce? And once I cross, is anything bringing me back down? No, so it ends up going up forever. Did it go low, high like we said it would? And a y-intercept of 0. Let's say the y-intercept wasn't 0, then you would not have had an x-intercept there. You would have ended up with something like that. Make sense? Okay, make sure to label. Okay, this next, the next one you're going to do on your own. Y equals x squared, x minus 3, x minus 5. What's the degree there?
2.
Be careful.
Oh, wait.
2, 4. So that's going to be 4 answers. Go ahead and do them now.
Is that x minus 5?
That's an x minus 5. And because of time, I am going to work them out with you. It's degree 4, and it is positive. Even and positive, I heard somebody say it. What is it? High, high. Okay, 0 equals x squared, x minus 3, x minus 5. What are my 3 zeros? First one is
It's
this one right here, x equals 0 with the multiplicity of what? Which means it's going to cross or bounce? Bounce?
Yeah.
Next one, x equals 3 with the multiplicity of 1, so it's going to cross. And the last one is x equals 5. Is that also going to cross? All right. And set them equal to 0, or plug in 0, sorry. Y equals 0 squared. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. What's 0 minus 5?
5.
Negative 5. So negative 3 times negative 5 times 0 is what?
15. 0.
0. All right, so quickly sketch, and then you can pack up when your sketch is done. Quickly sketch. Did the recording stay on the whole time?
Yes.